The latest Russia hoax documents show that targeting Trump was a deep state team sport. Blaze News, The Mandate, starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
This is a trip down memory lane of a week. We get to go back to all the 10 years of collusion.
Yes, hop in the time traveler, DC politics editor Chris Bedford. Are you ready to go back in time and relive what we all knew to be true?
I am. I feel like I'm at an American Spectator gala right now. We're going to go right through the Clinton corruption scheme one more time.
That is absolutely true, because we see the next domino has already fallen. All the documents we have from 2017 now reveal that the top DOJ and FBI leaders consistently instructed agents to halt or postpone inquiries that were supposed to go into the Clinton Foundation pay-to-play activities, and they simultaneously were accelerating the investigation into the Trump-Russia connection. So let's start with the Clinton side of the story, as Chris mentioned, because it wasn't just about Russia. It was about burying real corruption. Hillary Clinton, as we know, she served as the Secretary of State under Barack Obama from 2009 to 2013, and she was announcing her presidential run in 2016. By the end of mid-year of that summer, the FBI opened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's handling of classified information while serving as the Secretary of State. And Peter Schweitzer broke this all down for how the FBI field offices handled the Clinton Foundation earlier today on the Glenn Beck program.
And at one point, there were 4 FBI field offices. So in other words, these are the agents in the field: Little Rock, Arkansas, Washington, D.C., New York, and also, interestingly, the FBI extension office in Nigeria. Because remember, with the Clintons, it was global corruption. And they actually had in Nigeria a audio tape of a very corrupt oligarch bragging on a phone conversation about how he had donated to the Clinton Foundation and gotten favors in return. So this was an investigation. I mean, Clinton Cash was part of it. It certainly wasn't the only part of it. But the field offices were raring to go, and they were investigating. They were talking to people. They were gathering information. And immediately FBI headquarters basically said, hey, we don't want you doing this.
Shocker to absolutely no one. The 3 field offices that he was talking about are the New York City office, Little Rock, Arkansas, and of course, Washington, D.C., Matt. So what do we make of all of these new allegations, new things that are actually coming to light today?
Well, I mean, again, this is something that is known, but it's important to bring up again and to actually see from the inside the language that they used at the time to shut down, quote unquote, this investigation. And I think it's important also because of what you said. It runs parallel to what they're doing with Trump. So as they launch a fake investigation, into Trump as it gets deeper and deeper, while he takes over, they also were involved in looking at the other guys and picking winners and losers and saying, no, don't go over here and investigate these people for legitimate reasons. So this is laying out the truth of how not just pay to play works, but how at the highest levels these agencies pick and choose winners, and they don't think that they're accountable to anyone.
And the new information that we get today we actually get the names named in these documents. So let's go ahead and go through the timeline from the FBI. 2016 was an extremely busy year. We start out with February. The DOJ indicated that they would not be supportive of an FBI investigation. Back on February 17th, McCabe learned that the confidential human source who possibly had information on the matter, he said that he directed that no overt investigative steps were allowed to be taken in the Clinton Foundation. This goes without his approval, they said. Then we go back to March 1st. Deputy AG Sally Yates directed the Arkansas office to shut it down. They went through and said that they ordered federal prosecutors to shut it down. In June of that year, we have the infamous tarmac meeting between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, and they were both talking about, we were just talking about our grandkids and golfing. No, what they were actually talking about is the Hillary email server investigation. Then Comey announced that the FBI is contemplating its investigation of the email scandal. Comey greenlights the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And then we go through and look at the DC and Little Rock investigations consolidated and we're overseen right there in New York City, which is important because then we fast forward to Maureen Comey, the daughter of James Comey, began working at the SDNY field office for the U.S. Attorney. And we go through, Chris, and there are so many different points now that we know where the Clinton Foundation, McCabe is recusing himself of all of this, but we know the names now that go along with all of the data points that we have been looking at for so long.
We do. And when you combine it with some of the things that were released over the last few weeks by the Trump administration, you come up on that Loretta Lynch meeting, and you come up on the fact that the FBI actually interviewed Loretta Lynch, an FBI agent who was later exposed as being pretty partisan for the Democrats winning in general, and certainly anti-Trump, came away from that meeting and reported to the FBI, hey, it's really weird. When I talked to her about colluding with the Clinton campaign, she didn't deny it. Like, you'd think that she would either say no comment, I don't recall, or say I deny it, but she didn't. And they thought that was weird. Now, this is an example, I think, to what Matt was saying, of the FBI does serve presidents in a way that J. Edgar Hoover did very faithfully, especially Lyndon B. Johnson and before that. But they don't actually serve all presidents. They're not going to serve Donald Trump, that's for sure. They're not going to serve someone who threatens anything about the way that they actually conduct business in any way, or that they think is outside of the pale, beyond the pale. They're only going to serve Hillary Clinton. And this is them covering their butts. And now we have the names, we have the emails, we have the timestamps of when they were saying, all right, wrap it up. We're not going to follow any leads on this massive nonprofit that took hundreds of millions of dollars from countries and oligarchs and corrupt people around the planet only when the Clintons were in power. And funny enough, all that money dried up as soon as they weren't in power. And the Clinton Global Initiative is basically defunct. They weren't going to look into that because they were covering their butts. And then they tried to do that double cover of the butt where James Comey bizarrely came out and said, we're not going to press charges, as if it's James Comey and the FBI's job to press charges as opposed to the DOJ's against Hillary Clinton. And then they attacked her and slandered her and all this. And that, by the way, they were totally right. So I don't know if that's exactly slander or libel or whatever you want to call it. But made all these charges, said that they weren't going to pursue them. And then, by the way, at the exact same time, they're opening Operation Crossfire Hurricane into another candidate for office. This was kind of the assuredness of the DC scene right before that election, the confidence. It's later been exposed that there was actually a huge amount of paranoia and freakouts in the Clinton campaign in the days leading up to the election. They canceled the fireworks. They were worried about that whole thing. They knew that things were going off the rails and they could potentially lose, but they didn't tell the rest of Washington or the rest of the world, which all expected things to just go as part of the plan, just according to the narrative, the end of history narrative that they had constructed and lived on. And they didn't think that there was any shot that Donald Trump was going to actually show up there. I mean, I remember reading Political Playbook the morning of the election, and a whole section of it was devoted to what the catering companies were for different newsrooms in Washington and New York to feed their reporters that night during the election, where they covered the inevitability. We got a copy at our old newsroom of Madam President, that famous magazine cover that turned out that was shipped prematurely, and all these stores had it in boxes ready to release. And it turned out, whoops, there is no Madam President. It turns out that Donald Trump is the president. We have to redo this whole thing. This was part of their assuredness. And of course, you don't want, when you're the director of the FBI and when you're a political lackey and a lightweight like James Comey, to have the new president come in when she is as vindictive as Hillary Clinton is known to be and say, why were you investigating me? Why were you doing this? They tried to have it both ways, while at the same time undermining the Republican Party, undermining MAGA, undermining Donald Trump, and assuming there'd be no consequences. And thank God it's all blown up in their face.
Well, the Clinton Foundation was taking in so much money. Everybody around the world thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president. When she was Secretary of State, they raised $1.2 billion in campaign contributions and donations to the Clinton Foundation, Matt. It's just, if you want to look at what corruption is going to look like, it's that chart right there. You can see that they all thought, oh, this is absolutely going to happen. And they gave you 1.2 billion reasons why they thought that was going to be the case.
Yeah, this has been going on for a long time, but it has gotten progressively worse over time. And what we're talking about here is, really elite corruption. How do politicians become rich? How do these people who actually don't have real jobs, become wealthy? And there was a time in America where you would have something like the old dailies in Chicago, who some rough around the edges stuff going on there. You could say technically there was some corruption, but there wasn't the sense of hogging it, as Plunkett of Tammany Hall, an old great book about American politics. When you start to hog it, right, then people start to notice, and people have been hogging it for a very long time. So if you look at that chart again, what you're seeing is an obvious reaction to power, right? You're seeing there's a dip, and the dip is there for a reason. This thing gets off the ground ostensibly to provide funds for the Clinton Library, which would be a normal thing that a nonprofit could do, and it becomes a conduit, a bucket in which you can throw money at power. And when she's going to run again, that's what a lot of people are doing from throughout the world, including from Russia, right? And it's, these people look shamelessly into the camera and just say, it's okay when we do it, right? And this has been going on for a while. I mean, the Clintons presage the Obamas, who get an incredible deal from Netflix for whatever it was, $80 million, I believe. It was close to $100 million. To produce a bunch of entertainment specials, entertainment projects, given their wealth of experience in that area. I mean, so this has been going on for a while now, and it just gets worse and worse every year. And here you actually had a potential investigation of this thing, right? That was immediately shut down pretty fast.
Well, let's not just focus. Go ahead.
I love that reference to Plunkett of Tammany Hall, Matt. I assume that's what you're referencing there. That phenomenal book. If there are two books to read about to understand American politics, it's Plunkett of Tammany Hall and The Last Hurrah, which is a fiction about a Boston mayor. Honest graft. Just a wonderful time back when my people had our own ethnic political machine outside of just Amtrak conductors. And we're actually, and toll booth collectors, which have gone the way of the dinosaur as well. The good old days. I miss them.
And the point of Plunkett of Tammany Hall is he is sort of a corrupt, technically, right, politician from back in the day, but he's explaining, they make a little money, they stay in power, but they get things done. And when people want to hog it, right, when they want to hog it, it's all about me. I'm going to get an $80 million deal. I'm going to have $40 million from the Russians going to my foundation. I'm going to go to Davos and all this sort of thing. They're not doing the job anymore. They're not actually trying to provide any good or service, which old Plunkett was,
I was going to say, let's not let Hillary Clinton have all of the fun today because, the rest of the Obama administration is in on this, too. We get another tweet from DNI Tulsi Gabbard saying that we have newly declassified top secret emails back from 2016 where, everybody was out there complying with President Obama's order to create the manufactured intel about Russia. And then we get to see the NSA director, Mike Rogers, was warning people, hey, guys, we might not have sufficient evidence and all the time that backs this claim, right? We aren't fully comfortable, he said, saying that they have enough time to review this. But you guys, they're not going to let this go to waste. They're like, no. We have a narrative that we need to go fulfill. So whether you are comfortable with it or you think you have enough time to do this is irrelevant, Matt. Yeah,
and I mean, not only is it irrelevant, I mean, this is a travesty, right? They don't have time to properly vet information that involves like the highest levels of the highest game in the world. And we're just going to keep going. And I think what's particularly egregious with Clapper, who is another one of these people who, as far as I'm concerned, should be in prison. His email in the highest tradition of that's our story and we're sticking to it. It's essential that we're all on the same page. You got to be part of the team. Team sport is the word he uses, and he's using it with the kind of authority and veiled threat that people will recognize in their workplace. Like, you got to be part of the team on this one, buddy. And that's what they're saying to Mike Rogers, head of the freaking NSA, about this information. So you can see the little bullying cabal, pushing people around here.
Yeah, Bedford, it's all just one big team sport out there in Washington, D.C., at least as the Obama administration was concerned.
No, it truly is. It is a team sport. And Republicans and Democrats are both members of that team. At least they were. And after Trump was elected, most Republicans still were members of that team, that insular team. I remember looking at the NewsGuard Board of Governors, which is a mixture of former heads of NATO and former Republican secretaries of Homeland Security and former Democrat this and that. It's a who's who. And they would always pop up on my screen because they were attacking someone for being socially conservative or attacking someone for questioning the COVID narrative, which turned out to be entirely false. So I was curious what brought all of these players together, and what it turned out to be, and what brought the DC together in a bipartisan coalition against Donald Trump, was that the main threat to him was that he was threatening the international order. He was threatening the way the foreign policy was done. Same way that Barry Goldwater did when the FBI helped to try and take him down. He was going to make NATO members pay their dues. He was not going to play by the same rules. He was going to expose corruption. And that was something they absolutely could not abide. Both parties were like that. You didn't see any public protests remotely from Republican senators, for example, when outgoing President Donald Trump was removed from Twitter. Only one Republican senator even sent a private message on that matter to Twitter expressing concern, because they just wished he would go away. And the Senate is basically the last chamber in D.C., which hasn't really caught up because of the 6-year terms. They're pretty isolated from everything, actually, really. And the House of Representatives, though, it's kind of an interesting place where more than half of them at this point came into politics after Donald Trump was already on the national scene. And that's why you start to see such a different change there. But Washington, D.C. itself still wishes they could just blink and make this all go back to the way it used to be, where everyone fought on television, they'd go on Crossfire and duke it out, but in the end of the day, they all just got rich and fat like hogs.
Well said. Well said. I guess as one thought here that I think is important from all this is the fact that President Barack Hussein Obama really bears a lot of the blame here, and he gets away with his name isn't even being talked about this entire week as much as it should be, because at the end of the day, the buck does stop with the commander in chief, and he put all these people in a room and said, we need this report, and we need it out before January 20th, and that's when I say original sin, right? Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and all their lackeys, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton and all their lackeys got together to tarnish the Trump administration before it even started. And just repeating that over and over again, showing that to people over again is, I think, an important task.
Well, I've been reliably assured that the Obama administration was a scandal-free administration.
Exactly.
There's nothing to see here, Bedford. There's nothing. Everybody was doing things above board in the Obama administration.
Yeah, I think it was at the New York Times or the Washington Post that said it was incredible after 8 years, not a single scandal. No guns brought into Mexican cartels that were used to execute people at children's parties or kill Brian Terry, an American agent. There was no IRS scandal. There was none of that. And it turned out that they were actually sitting on one of the biggest scandals in modern American political history. Get out of the way, Teapot Dome.
Yep.
This is so much bigger than all of that. And they just wanted, I remember the Washington Post released a press release after Barack Obama left office saying, we are reconstituting our investigations team now that there's actually a corrupt administration in D.C. I thought, gosh, boys, where you been? Where you got all that money and all that prestige, and what do you use it for? Just taking care of each other.
That will be the final word. Bedford, loved it today. Thanks so much.
See you soon.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll have Mike Dunleavy. Nothing to do with basketball. He's actually the governor of Alaska. Next. Well, you go in the grocery store, you think you know what you're buying, and then you find out that 4 billion pounds of meat were imported to the United States just last year. And a lot of it can still be labeled like it's right here from America. That's why you have to start thinking like, wait a minute. What am I actually eating? This says product of the United States, and the meat wasn't raised here. So what other games are they playing? That's why you need to look at Good Ranchers, because their meat is 100% American. It's born, raised, and harvested on local farms and delivered right to your door. And its quality is next level. I'm a subscriber myself. You can get actually $40 off every box, free shipping, and a free gift in every order for life. You can choose from the bacon, seed oil-free chicken nuggets, and Wagyu burgers, and you can swap the gift from month to month. And if you're worried about signing up for a subscription, you don't need to be, because you can pause it, delay it, cancel it at any time. It's all very flexible. Go to goodranchers.com and see what everybody is talking about. If you use my code Jill, you'll get $40 off plus free meat for life with your subscription. Goodranchers.com. Welcome to the table. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy is set to welcome the Russian President Vladimir Putin to American soil tomorrow in a historic face-to-face between two global superpowers.
Well, we're going to have a meeting with Vladimir Putin, and at the end of that meeting, probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. How will you know that? Because that's what I do. I make deals.
Governor Dunleavy is gracious enough to give us some of his time. He joins us right now. So welcome to the program. It's a busy week, I'm sure, for you up there in Alaska. So, you know, there's a lot riding on this meeting. So how optimistic are you that a deal will get reached right there in Alaska?
Well, I don't know if this meeting is going to culminate in an actual deal, actual peace treaty, peace accord. But I certainly believe, as the president said in your lead, that he's going to be able to ascertain pretty quick how serious President Putin is about securing peace. I know President Trump is. We all want a just peace in this war, as we do in all wars. We want a just peace for the Ukraine. And so we'll see how it goes. But I think it's great to have it here in Alaska. Makes a lot of sense from a travel perspective. We're about 2 hours closer to Moscow than going the other way to Washington, D.C. President Trump's able to come up here pretty quick, fly over Canada for a certain period of time and get here in Alaska. He's been here many times. And so we're honored to host this summit. We hope good things come out of it. But I would temper expectations only because I think, as the president said, he's got to figure out how serious Putin is. And if he finds out that he's serious, that he's genuinely serious, there's also rumors that potentially President Zelensky could also be asked to join. And if that were the case, I would say that you got something serious with a possible a conclusion of a peace accord at the end of this. But I think it's going to be an intro and an ascertaining whether the President Putin is serious and what to do next.
Well, the media has made a big deal about the summit being held in Alaska. Let's go ahead and take a look at former NSA John Bolton saying that it basically gives Putin a home field advantage.
It's very gracious of Putin to come to former Russian America for this summit. This is not quite as bad as Trump inviting the Taliban to Camp David to talk about the peace negotiations in Afghanistan, but it certainly reminds one of that. The only better place for Putin than Alaska would be if the summit were being held in Moscow.
I mean, he's the former NSA governor. What are your response to comments like this?
Well, he's not the president, and probably for good reason. President Trump is. And if you can see what President Trump is doing all over the world, he started in his first term with the Abraham Accords. Those will probably be expanded before his second term is over. But again, this is America. Alaska is probably the most American state there is. We have a robust military presence up here. We're a huge Second Amendment state. We have more retired military personnel per capita than any other state in the country. This is, in many respects, this state bleeds America. And so, again, anything we can do to help the President of the United States, who has been terrific for the state of Alaska in securing peace, we're there. And so, it's always great to hear other people's opinions, but they're not in the driver's seat. And so I'm going to put my money on President Trump that something good can come out of this discussion.
Governor, could you say a little bit more? I mean, these comments are ridiculous, but you see a bit of them just because the media seems to be very focused in talking negative about this event, this historic meeting, first time in 10 years Putin is on American soil. Say a little bit more about the strategic importance of just Alaska when it comes to that military presence and its geographic place.
Yeah, I mean, when you know the history of Alaska, it makes a lot of sense. So, 1959, we became a state. That was in the height of the Cold War. Our Constitution for the state of Alaska was formed in the height of the Cold War. Our military presence, we were just coming out of just a short, almost 18 years before, the Japanese had a foothold in the Aleutians. And so our proximity on the globe is absolutely strategic. We're an Arctic nation for obvious reasons. We're a Northern Pacific nation for obvious reasons. We're a Western Pacific nation. I mean, again, we project Alaska and the United States, through Alaska, the United States projects itself throughout the Arctic and the Pacific. As I tell people, we're about 1,000 miles closer to Australia than California is. People think of us as way up on the top of the world, which we are. We're incredibly, from a geographic perspective, very far west, much more so than Hawaii. And our military presence, F-35s, F-22s, largest Coast Guard presence in the United States, rapid deployment forces at our Army base in Wainwright, missile intercepts in the state of Alaska. We have a lot of robust military assets here, and we truly are the fort for North America. We're the ones that have to deal with the Russians constantly, in many cases, with flybys to our airspace. We're under the Korean missile umbrella in the state of Alaska. We have Chinese warships fly the Bering Strait. So we exist in a dangerous neighborhood, but we know how to deal with it, and we have the assets to do that. But again, having this summit here, if it can lead to peace, I think it's a great thing. And I don't know how you get peace without having conversations with the individuals involved in a war. Sooner than later is the hope that this thing could be resolved.
Yeah, so well said. That's what I don't understand. Idiots like John Bolton, he's national security advisor, should know better that the location makes a lot of sense in terms of foreign affairs and foreign policy, given the history and the reality that you live with every day. So tell us a little bit about what this week has been like in preparations for this event.
Well, it's a small state. Population-wise, 740,000 people spread over a land area about the size of Western Europe. It's a large state geographically. An advanced team had contacted us, I think it was Friday, to be honest with you, and began the process of coming up here. We've met with them on several occasions. They've secured the military base at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, which is probably a good idea given that it's got the accommodations, it's got the space for the conferences. It's secure. It is one of our largest bases that we have in the state of Alaska. So that's been secured. That makes sense. And then, we're in the height of our tourist season. So a lot of reporters coming up and others that want to follow this. Rooms are tight. Air flights are tight. It's just the way it is. But I think we're going to pull off certainly a safe, I think, organized event in support of the president and what he's trying to accomplish. So again, Alaska is honored to have the president here. I'm honored to have the president here. And it is a historical event. And hopefully, again, our eyes on the end game and what it means for just peace for the folks in the Ukraine.
Well, the world's eyes will be on Alaska. We can't wait to see it. Governor Dunleavy, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll be getting into all the headlines of the week with Mike Howell right after this.
Well, as the corporate establishment right collapses, the rhino right collapses under its contradictions and cowardice, and while the left is drowning in delusions and destructiveness and all that sort of insanity, NATCON, National Conservatism Conference, is returning to Washington, D.C. this September 2nd through the 4th to celebrate the growth and success of the national conservative movement. This is a great event. I mean, some of the past speakers have been J.D. Vance, now the vice president, Marco Rubio, Stephen Miller. These are all people who are now in the Trump administration actually turning NATCON ideas into political reality. They've got a great slate of speakers. This was always the future. They're a huge part of the new right. They have Trump administrations already coming, like Tulsi Gabbard, Harmeet Dillon, Russ Vought. They've got Senator Josh Hawley, Senator Eric Schmidt, Representative Riley Moore. These are great people. Institutional leaders like Kevin Roberts, been on the show a bunch from Heritage, Christopher DeMuth, they'll also be there. And you got cultural iconoclasts like Steve Bannon, Jack Posobiec, Kurt Schlichter. They're all on the docket as well. And of course, I will be there too. I was a part of the first one. I've been a part of many of these events. And so I hope that you show up and come and see the future and celebrate our success. If you want to be part of the most influential conservative conference probably in the world, join me at NATCON this September. You can get your tickets now at natcon.org. That's natcon.org.
The latest Russia hoax revelations prove that the intelligence community could have used some oversight. That's why Mike Howell, the president of the Oversight Project, is shedding some light on what they do out there in the shadows. So, Mike, great to see you once again. So there have been so many headlines this week. The latest, though, is all with the Clinton Foundation. The FBI told their field offices, hey, you know what? Let's just stop looking into them. So what do you make of just the crazy week of headlines that we've seen that just goes to prove everything that we thought we knew all along?
Yeah, it's been just a flurry of different data points confirming what people, as you said, knew all along. And you can really see how multi-layered it was, and all of the people that were long suspected to have done what they've done are now in writing doing what they did. And so I think it's great that the Trump administration is making this all public. It puts it beyond the realm of debate. You know, for a while, the left wing and their commentators would try to muddy the waters, but we're seeing in plain writing and black and white all the efforts to stymie these things. And I know it gets complicated, but I would just try to say that the general sweep of the tactics here are whatever anything could have been done to hurt President Trump and his allies, the intelligence community and law enforcement bend itself into pretzels to pursue even the most frivolous things. And then when confronted with clear and convincing sustained evidence against their political allies, they, in their own words, shut it down. And frankly, a lot of those people are still, you know, at the working levels, maybe not the leadership, still proliferated throughout the intelligence community and law enforcement.
I mean, there's so many things to unpack from these stories, and it is going in the Wayback Machine a little bit, but I think it's really important that it all re-ups now for the American people to relive, because I think there's a lot more people paying attention and who have some understanding now, even though it is 10 years later, that the shenanigans went on here. I mean, a lot of people, right, not usually in the Blaze audience, right, maybe 10 years ago, now all of a sudden they realize, oh, wow, something went on here, and polling shows this among Democrats. A lot of them realized something went on here that was shady. So to take one of those things, post 2016 election, we know that Mike Rogers said no from the NSA. He at least had questions, right, about foisting this ridiculous narrative about Russian collusion upwards up the chain. And Washington Post ran a story saying Clapper and others want Obama to fire, NSA lead Mike Rogers. And you have to wonder, looking back, I mean, these guys were playing these games all along. He was the odd man out, right? Because he was somewhat honest internally about the situation, and they're probably trying to push him out. It's like this gang of a corrupt cabal, right, at the heart of the national security complex.
That's exactly right. And when you have the president of the United States in Obama basically asking the IC and his chief political appointees in those perches to rewrite the intelligence, you had some people saying either for patriotic reasons, no, we can't do that. That's not how this works, or for self-preservation reasons that it's just so obviously sloppy and will be figured out. We're not going to go along with it. And I don't know which camp everyone necessarily fits in, but Mike Rogers clearly was someone who wasn't willing to do it, and they wanted to get rid of him. And in their justification for trying to get rid of him, it's really laughable in the larger context, of they were claiming mishaps at his agency that related to CCP things. But then you zoom out for a second and think, hey, what happened with the CCP over the intelligence community in the last decade? Well, they were able to run absolutely roughshod, and the connective tissue from the highest end political appointees to the CCP is so obvious when you look back at it. You have President Obama, who one of the first things he did, and no one talks about this, Peter Schweitzer uncovered this, and he's a legend for it. Obama went to China and just went to a stadium and pose for photographs so he could cash a bunch of checks and, different levels of money for a picture with Obama, shaking his hand. Do you want it in a group? And he just cashed in, and he's a celebrity over there. And the same thing goes for Brennan and Clapper. They absolutely, and Comey and Ray for that matter, you had the Bidens who were clearly cheaply bought off by the CCP funding their family. And you had the first family, to be compromised. And they did nothing despite it hitting every single flashing red light siren. And then for them to turn around and to claim that, Mike Rogers was the one who was off the ball is so laughable in this when you look back at the grand sweep of history here.
I just want to zoom out, as you're saying, and look at the Republicans and how they deal with things versus how Democrats deal with things, because you see Hillary Clinton here. Oh, the FBI field officers are like, nothing to see here, no charges, don't worry. And then we get, as Trump says, Russia, Russia, Russia. Everybody's going out there. And for a decade, we've been dealing with all of this. And only now we have the actual documents to prove that none of the things that they said happened were actually the way that they were. So when you look at this, how do we have a republic that is going to continue if this is the game that we play, if there is actually no accountability? Because we're still waiting for Pam Bondi AG to go through and start bringing charges, right? If that doesn't happen, how do we even move forward from here?
Well, you don't, is the short answer. And another more uncomfortable truth is we may not have it right now, or at least to the degree we would hope we do. I mean, that pops up over and over again. That's the Autopen investigation. They ran a country without a president. And then you have these institutions of government acting way outside their place in the constitutional order. And so there's no doubt we were completely out of order with the way this country should work. When exactly that amounts to not having a constitutional republic is up for debate, but we certainly don't have a near perfect working version of it right now. And so while accountability is so desperately needed, and if President Trump and AG Bondi don't get it, that will be the story. That is the mandate that they put out there to achieve. And so they actually have to achieve it. But even further than just the individualized accountability, which is absolutely needed, there needs to be structural reform. You can't just play whack-a-mole. And people should understand that the guilt here is corporate. Of course, there are ringleaders of it, Obama at the top and others and Hillary, but it is a corporate guilt that should be worn by the entirety of the Democratic Party apparatus, to include the media, the donors, the intelligence functions, both inside and outside the government. And I think it's going to be incumbent on all of us to basically articulate that they have lost the trust permanently and shouldn't exist as a viable major American political party. And the sins are replete. And they're also gigantic that it's kind of, you get used to it. But at the end result, in the end of the day, and what history should reflect, is these people use the political machinery of the United States to gravely abuse the core structures of the United States government. And that's not something that goes away just when one person goes to jail. I think it means the Democratic Party shouldn't exist as a major American political party.
Yeah, I just want to glom onto that. I mean, two things, what you said, they're really important. One is the structural reform, because it drives me nuts how many people, right, even good people within the administration, they just don't think that way, and they think it's impossible to structurally reform these agencies. That absolutely needs to happen, otherwise we lose. And then two, I'm not saying that prosecuting people isn't essential and it won't destroy the movement if we don't, but I'm adding to that fact that you do ultimately try people in the court of public opinion. And so what you're saying is really important, because what we want is a majority coalition in America at the end of this that realizes what they did was shameful, Jill, and it should never happen again.
Yes, and we look at the unelected people and all the secrecy and all the deep state that's going on there in Washington, D.C. Representative Anna Paulina Luna is getting in on some of the fun. I'm old enough to remember, Mike, that when we had COVID, they were out there going, hey, by the way, aliens, totally a thing. Let's go ahead and take a look at Representative Anna Paulina Luna here.
I have seen photos. I have seen...
What have you seen photos of?
So I was in a skiff, and I can't discuss all that was in a skiff, but what I can tell you is based on the photos that I've seen, I'm very confident that there's things out there that have not been created by mankind.
It seems crazy that people have access to information that shows that there's something outside of us that is more intelligent, at least more capable than we are. and they hide it from everybody else.
All right, one of my least favorite arguments is just trust me, bro. Like, I've seen it. Don't worry. I was in the skiff. I can't tell you what's happening. But just trust me. We have aliens. It's fine, Mike. It's just another day here in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, they're not doing anyone favors just by kind of alluding to, limited hangouts here and there. And I think, one of the biggest failures of the government was allowing Area 51 to basically breed into, what it is today. I think limited disclosure of information could have gone a long way. And you create this space where anything can go and theories proliferate. But it's an absolutely legitimate concern. Very clearly, there are things happening that people cannot explain. And I'm not even sure the federal government or other governments can explain. And where you draw the line between something that's probably really advanced military kind of aircraft and training and science and whatnot versus just a decades-long series of these inexplicable events. And it's not just Luna, who's a congresswoman. Several presidents throughout history have reported, alien contact. I mean, it seems ridiculous to say, but Jimmy Carter did. Bill Clinton did. I mean, there's just too many data points there for them to go unanswered. But I'll tell you what we should have an answer on. And I thought about this after I saw Luna speaking out, is the first contact policy. I mean, there right now, the system is basically a Malaysian astrophysicist is in charge of, if aliens do make contact, she's the one the world puts out. And it's kind of, it got some traction like a decade ago. But I think President Trump should come very clear that if there is such a event to ever transpire, it is President Trump in America that maintains first contact. And I think that clarification would go a long way.
I don't know. I don't have any evidence, but I saw a lot of aliens in California. They were all standing by that manual labor, sort of place. There's a lot of legal aliens.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of the evidence, but the evidence we do have is exactly what you say. And of course, you have to wonder if this keeps on coming out, then why isn't it purposeful, right? Area 51 being a case in point. If you want to get rid of the rumors, you certainly could. The government hasn't done that. Then again, I guess, I don't know, Jill, about you, but I'm not taking my alien advice from Anna Paulina, much as I love her.
I look at this and I just say, man, I can get it. Why we were talking about this in COVID, like everybody was bored. There was nothing going on. Mike Howell, that's not the case right now. There is so much going on, and we always appreciate your insight helping us break it all down.
All right, thanks for having me on. The truth is out there.
The truth is out there. The aliens might be out there. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, in a world that's gone fully digital, holding something in your hands is almost revolutionary. That's what Frontier Magazine is. You can actually hold a piece of history. It's real. It's permanent. It's the kind of truth that can't be quietly deleted or buried by an algorithm. And our Vanna White over here, Matthew Peterson. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you just reading Frontier?
Just reading this lovely publication that we put together for all of you out there. It's large, beautiful, and it has lots of interesting things within it.
That is issue number 3. And you can only get it, though, through Blaze Unlimited. And it's not just your way to get Frontier Magazine. You'll also get VIP perks, early event access, members-only content, and a premium experience built for people that actually want more. So it's not about just reading the truth. It's about owning it. So go to blazeunlimited.com/BNT right now to lock in your subscription before we sell out again. The first 50 subscribers who use the code BLAZE50 will get $40 off and a special bonus. You'll get digital access to Frontier's issues number 1 and 2, so you'll have the entire collection. Go to blazeunlimited.com/BNT. Use promo code BLAZE50.
Do you plan to meet with Leader Schumer and Leader Jeffries to discuss that situation?
Well, I will, I guess, but it's almost a waste of time to meet because they never approve anything. If we want money to fight crime, if we want money to do only good things, just good things. And let's not even talk about controversial. They don't want to meet about anything. They really are. They're stuck. They don't know what to do. They have probably more, I would say more than half are sane, but they are led by insane people.
More than half were sane. That's actually pretty lenient. Even Donald Trump, though, he can't take the Democrat lunacy anymore. So I posted on X, who is the most insane Democrat and why? Kyle starts us off with a Jasmine Crockett meme that read, gerrymandering? What's that word mean? Which we could basically just end the show right here, MP. I love that so much.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of says it all. Poor Jasmine, not blessed in some ways, but she's still a rock star, and she deserves all the ridicule.
But she's right here in Dallas, so
I know.
she's so close to us, yet we don't want her. So I don't know what we can do. We need to vote her out. Adrian said, I'd say Mazie Hirono, certifiably insane and stupid. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. No question about that one.
Yeah, Maisie, I mean, yeah, few fries short of a Happy Meal doesn't even begin to describe. 3 brain cells are all fighting each other. I don't know how you want to say it, but it is amazing how some of these people are in office.
And Roy rounds us out. He says that I think I would fear the followers more than those that are insane themselves, and uses a nice Star Wars meme there.
Yeah, who's more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? I don't know. You got to ask yourself that question. But people have gotten used to this. So I think a lot of the followers are indeed crazy, but people have gotten they're used to hearing this kind of crazy talk and putting up with it, or even thinking it's good, actually.
Well, and you can just look at something like the Sydney Sweeney ad as like the latest example of this. And the people on the left are going insane, saying it's like the Nazi thing. And you're like, you're just mad because she's an attractive woman. Like you're just insane that we have gone so far crazy that we're like, oh, that woman, she's attractive, so we can't have that on TV anymore.
It's just that kind of stuff is so hard for me to wrap my mind around, like why anyone would be mad about an attractive woman. I can see getting mad at an attractive woman once in a while, but why would you be mad because of it? That is so foreign to the mind. This is how you sell products and services with attractive women, and attractive people in general. But what's happening now, I think, is really important, is that whole thing that they erected, the bubbles popped, and it's falling apart. It's falling apart. The Democratic Party right now is falling apart. So you can complain about, we're not doing enough, All these great things are happening in the administration, and the other side is falling apart at the seams in real time.
Isn't it undeniable truth of life, number 24, that feminists went out there, it's basically that they have a way to go through and have access to the mainstream society. They're just like, no, feminism was created so that they had access to mainstream society. That's it. I know it. My brain is just a long day.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how I always thought at some point this has to end, and I'm not saying it's over, right? We still have to fight all these institutions. New media needs to be built. New universities need to be, fundamentally reformed. But this stuff is not lasting. It's falling apart. Trump's right. He can say that out loud, and it's not even really going to garner that much, hate, because I think over 50% of the people in this country, a 55 to 60% majority at least, is over and done with that crap.
There's a lot of ways that you can tell if a female is a liberal or a Republican. One, if their hair is blue, not our team. You know that already. But also if they have like the little like pixie bangs, like if their bangs are like half an inch long, you're like, you're not on our team.
Yeah,
That's it.
These are all signs.
They're all feminists.
Signs.
You know that they're all feminists.
Yes.
And they're all certifiably
Access to mainstream society.
People.
Insane people getting access to mainstream society.
That's what they're doing on the leftists.
We don't want that
They're
anymore.
insane. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
No mas.